Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. This is the show where I read a lot of comic books and I'll let you know what I thought about them. But before we get into that, I just want to make sure everybody's aware that Horror Fest 2024 starts Monday, August 19th at 8 p.m. Central Time here on Pop Culture Philosophers on our show PCP Movie Night. We'll be talking about all 7 Paranormal Activity movies, and trust me, you want to hear the discussion about the pain that we've all felt going through this franchise. But Horror Fest, y'all, it's over 50 movies across 3 channels on like 35 shows. It's our favorite time of the year. The most wonderful time of the year is Horror Fest. Not Christmas. Christmas is fine, but Horror Fest is even better. So join us Monday at August 19th at 8 p.m. Central Time for Horror Fest, the official kickoff here on Pop Culture Philosophers PCP Movie Night. All right, let's get into the pick of the week, because we always start with the pick of the week, and this week's pick of the week, it's Precious Metal number 3. I mean, come on, y'all. It's getting predictable at this point that this is one of the best books of the year. It's one of the best books on shelves. This is a follow-up, a prequel of sorts to the book Little Bird, which was my favorite book the year it dropped, which I think was 2019. Pretty much every issue made the pick of the week. It was my favorite book of the year, and Precious Metal is shaping up to be exactly the same. I am not, and I know a lot of people tell me, they're like, oh, you're like the best comic book reviewer on YouTube, you're the best comic book reviewer ever. I'm not. Nick from Comic Culture is a great comic book reviewer. Eric from 9 Panel Grid is a great comic book reviewer. There's tons of them. In fact, check out our monthly shows that we do every month. The monthly comic book review. Some people that really have great thoughts about comics. But even at me, with my status or whatever, right? I cannot do justice to this book. I mean, I could tell you that the story is great, that it's structurally even more sound than Little Bird. I could tell you about the nuances and the poignancy of the character and what he's going through, and the whole analogy of the storm versus his life and memory and water and all. I could go on and on about that. I could talk about Ian Bertram's artwork like obsessively. I could talk about every single tick, every single line, how it's dense, how it's complex, but just like the story, it's dense and it's complex, but it has this like deceptive feeling of looseness, of freedom, of space, of conciseness. Like, I could go on and on about that. I could go on and on about Matt Hollingsworth's colors, about how they are so amazing and how he's picking the right colors for the right moments, and he's actually using more than just color theory, and he makes images pop off the page, and he helps really clarify some of the line work, which is already clear enough. I could go on and on about Hassan Otsmane-Elhaou and his lettering, and how his lettering is actually like a part of the artwork, and it actually matters that this book is lettered by him. The previous one, Little Bird, was lettered by Aditya Bidikar. Bidikar and Haas, they're like the best letterers in the business, right? I could go on and on about that. I could go on and on about Ben Dyer and his impeccable sense of design. The logo, the title pages, all that stuff. I could do that, but it wouldn't give justice to this book. This book, well, you don't want to see that page. How about this one? This book is amazing. It's playing with concepts that other people would just take and run for 75 issues with, but to Darcy Van Polgeest, the writer, it's just a concept. But what's more important to him is the story. It's the character. It's the journey. It's the structure of it. The artwork, dense and complex, but at the same time, it's got room to breathe. This book is amazing. When people make comics that give a shit about making comics, you get stuff like Precious Metal. This book is amazing, and right now, I know we're only 3 issues in. I think we got 2 more. This is the book of the year. This is the book of the year. Right now, this is the book of the year. 100%. Don't be surprised in December when I drop my top 20 comics of 2024, and this book is probably going to be number 1, because Precious Metal is dope. And if you don't believe me, read it. Read Little Bird, read it, watch Nick, watch Eric, watch us on the monthly comic book review, and hear us gush over this book. It's amazing. Also from Image, we got Geiger issue number 5. What a fantastic issue of Geiger. Now, it can be considered emotional manipulation whenever there's an animal in danger in a story. I know people that absolutely hate when writers and creators put an animal at risk or kill an animal, for instance. I'm not going to spoil what happens in this issue, but man, it was so touching. As an animal lover, I don't mind being emotionally manipulated that way, because I read a book like this and I go and find my cats and I give them some loving. I go hug them, I pet them, I kiss them, and all that kind of stuff. Geiger is amazing. Geiger is going up against the electrician. Things are not going quite his way. His weakness has been found out. And the way that this book, this is like the quickest read of a Geiger book. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a very good way. This book got to the end and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. It ain't time yet. The artwork by Gary Frank is impeccable. The coloring by Brad Anderson is absolutely astonishing. Geiger slaps. Geiger slaps. Real quick, by the way, Precious Metal is gonna get the trifecta, okay? We're gonna give it Pick of the Week, Cover of the Week, and Smell of the Week. It smells like high concept science fiction. And that's what smells amazing to me. So anyway, Precious Metal gets the trifecta, the hat trick, if you will, but we do have a runner-up for Cover of the Week. We'll get to that. Then we also have Falling in Love on the Path to Hell, issue number 2. This issue was probably the clunkiest out of the 3, but I didn't hate it. I still thought it was a really solid book. It's about this dude, he's like a gunslinger in the Old West, and this other woman who's like a samurai in Japan. They both die. They wind up on this island that's kind of like a purgatory type situation where they have to fight hordes of the undead every single night for all of their existence, or they die and just become nothing. That's pretty much it. But this was a pretty solid book. It's got some great action. It's got some great pacing to it. It's all right. It does get a little overwrought, I think, with its narration. But aside from that, it's a pretty solid read. So there you go. All right. Over at Marvel, we got X Factor issue number 1, From the Ashes. A New Beginning. Don't worry. Eventually, very soon, I'll have to stop saying that. And I'm very glad. In fact, I could just stop saying it. Anyway, X Factor issue number 1. It's all right. It's making a big joke of the book, and it's written by Mark Russell, and that's what he does. He likes to work with satire and making fun of things, and I usually appreciate that work from him, but I didn't really like it here on X Factor. This also felt very derivative is the wrong word, but it also felt too much like Pete Milligan and Mike Allred's first issue of X-Force. It kind of had some of that vibe. It's basically taking the idea of X Factor and making a reality show out of it, and it's got some moments that work. It's alright. It's okay. But it just, I don't know. It didn't really fire off for me. And I was kind of disappointed. Plus, it's got artwork by Bob Quinn. The artwork is alright. It's cool. But it does have this kind of like stiff, plasticky kind of nature. But that's not necessarily something inherent to just this book. It's just kind of mainstream superhero comics all in all. Alright, then we got Werewolf by Night, issue number 1. This is a Red Band book. So all of them are going to be polybagged. Why? Because there's one panel of 2 dudes, like, ripped up. That's it. There's no reason for this thing to be $5. There's no reason for this thing to be polybagged. There's nothing in here that makes it, like, super transgressive or, like, super, like, gnarly. Like, it's I mean, honestly, Blood Hunt, the Red Band editions had more gore and stuff in it than this one. It was alright. It was okay. I really like the character Werewolf by Night, but aside from the original run, and then the brief stint that Paul Jenkins and Leonardo Manco did, it's slim pickings out there. Slim pickings. Speaking of slim pickings and werewolves, Slim Pickens was in The Howling. It was alright. That's a dope cover, though. Not the cover of the week, nor is it the runner-up to the cover of the week, but it's a dope cover. Spider Society, number 1 is here. If you like the Spider-Verse, you're going to like this book, I guess. I don't like any of the Spider-Verse stuff. Like, I like the movies. You know, Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse, those are really good movies, but as a concept at Marvel, it's gotten lame, it's gotten boring, it's gotten repetitive, it's derivative of itself, right? It's like Marvel, somebody in the Spidey office is like, sales are slagging, Disney cover, that's one button they have. The other button they have is Spider-Verse, Spider-Verse. Didn't they do the end of the Spider-Verse already? Nope, it's still here. It's the Spider-Verse. If you like the Spider-Verse, go for it. Me, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. Spider Society. And here's the dumbest thing. I don't usually like to pick apart comics based on just like one thing that happens, but the whole thing gets set off by Madam Web sending a mass text to all these spider people across the multiverse, across the Spider-Verse. That is stupid. That is stupid. Also, the Werewolf by Night book starts with somebody on their phone going like, yo, like and subscribe. We're here at this haunted house. I think a werewolf's here. How many times have you seen that in comics recently? We get it. Vloggers exist. Jesus Christ. Venom War is here. Venom War issue number 1 was alright, but it was kind of dumb. Here we got Venom War Spider-Man. This is written by Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly with artwork by Greg Land. Yeah, art by Greg Land. So already it's got a big knock on it. Kelly and Lansing, they do okay with this, but there's no reason to read this book. So in the pages of Venom War number 1, the symbiote, worried about Eddie and Dylan, goes to Peter and says, hey, let's, for old time's sake, let's do a team up again. And this is just kind of like stuff that happened to Peter once he took on the symbiote again that happens before he shows up to help save the day in Venom War. It's it's a cash grab, it's Greg Land. It is what it is. Then we got Iron Fist, 50th anniversary special, issue number 1. Iron Fist is 50 years old now. Looking good, looking good. This is alright. It's got a bunch of different short stories by various creators throughout the history of Iron Fist. You got Chris Claremont, who helped co-create the character. You got Alyssa Wong, who has done the new Iron Fist book. We got Justina Ireland, Alina Casagrande, Frank Thierry, Ty Templeton. It was really cool to see Ty Templeton kind of play around in the Iron Fist. And then we got Will Spatasio, but it's really kind of rough. Honestly, the Will's pages are rough. They're all right. I guess I'm not the super hugest Iron Fist fan, but I like Iron Fist enough. But this one didn't really do much for me, and I really feel like it was a missed opportunity to try to get Brubaker and what's his name, whatever. That immortal Iron Fist run. It's not really represented here. Not truly. That was kind of disappointing. It's kind of disappointing. Then we got X-Men issue number 2. This was an alright issue of X-Men. I didn't really vibe too much with X-Men number 1. And out of all of these like X-Men relaunches from the Ashes, oh, it doesn't say it anymore. That's so cool. But this whole like from the Ashes era, Uncanny X-Men worked for me, and X-Force a little bit, but for the most part, the rest of them haven't, right? X-Men number 2 was decent. You know, it's just like Cyclops and his team go on to like rescue a mutant whose powers are just now activating. He's a little bit older than they typically would be when the powers activate, so there's a mystery there. It's kind of like clever how they did it. Ryan Stegman's artwork is okay, but not quite the Ryan Stegman that we know and love and appreciate. It's alright. It's okay. It's decent. It's decent. It's decent. It's decent. Then we got Vengeance of the Moon Knight, issue number 8. We got a new Moon Knight book coming out. Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu. I think that's coming soon. How much longer is Vengeance of the Moon Knight going to run? Because there's no way that Moon Knight can really justify 2 or 3 ongoing and limited series at the same time. But this was a great issue. It's basically catching us up from the end of Blood Hunt. It's catching up some of the supporting characters like Reese and Soldier and 8-Ball. It's catching them up along with us, the audience, to the return of Mark Spector as Moon Knight, because he was dead for like 2 months. They even in the book, they're like, you guys have been doing this for so long without me. I'm like, bro, you just died. Your book, the second volume's on 8. 8-ish, like, okay, it's 8 months at best, but you know that this book's come out a little bit more frequently than that. Anyway, Vengeance of the Moon Knight number 8 was awesome. It was a really great issue. Even though it kind of felt more like a Blood Hunt coda, it worked. It worked majestically well. I really liked it. I thought the characterizations were great. The art was pretty solid. The art was really solid. This is a Prominent. Oh, yeah. Devmalia Prominent. The art was really solid. The story was good. Let me find just some good artwork there. Anyway, I liked Vengeance of the Moon Knight number 8, even though I do think it's silly when you kill a character and then like bring him right back and then act like he's been gone for years. But whatever. Fantastic Four is here with issue number 23, and it's an okay issue of the Fantastic Four. After the big revelations at the end of Strange Cab, the big revelations at the end of Blood Hunt, that definitely impacts the Fantastic Four. And they dive into that just a little bit. For the most part, though, it's just kind of like a one-and-done story. That's what Ryan North's been doing. And this one just didn't really quite click for me. I felt like the story was an interesting concept, but it wrapped up way too quickly. But it does have a second part on the way, so I don't know. We shall see. I'm just going to say this, though. Can we please get Johnny Storm out of that dumb mustache goatee thing he's got? I mean, seriously? Then we got Helverine here with issue number 4. This is the final issue of Helverine. This book did not have enough issues to actually fully cook. So it's a rather abrupt and rushed ending, in my opinion. I've had a lot of fun with this book. I've said it's not great, but it's fun. And I think this book has been fun, but this final issue really does kind of rush things to a conclusion and then sets up a promise that we'll get this explored eventually later on down the road. So they're just kicking that can. It's basically what Marvel's doing. Helverine, issue number 4, though. It was It's good. Then we got the Ultimates, issue number 3. My boy Dennis Camp doing great things over at Marvel right now with the Ultimates. This is awesome. This is the introduction of the Ultimate She-Hulk, and it's about like bomb testing and nuclear war, as Hulk stuff can be about. Honestly, I mean, that was kind of the inspiration of it initially, but also how that affects like Pacific Islanders in particular. I thought that was really clever, very cool. This is Dennis leaning a little bit more into like 20th Century Men, his work there, which was amazing, which I think was, I don't know how influenced it was, but it felt very influenced to me from One by Rick Veitch, right? But Ultimates number 3 rocked. I loved this book. I think it's my favorite Ultimate book right now because of the concepts. If you like work from Jonathan Hickman, Warren Ellis, Grant Morrison, you need to read some Dennis Camp stuff. Also, Rick Veitch. I mean, he is that level. He's at that echelon of comic book creator, in my opinion, and this dude ain't even started yet. Ultimates number 3 was great. Let's jump over to DC. And from DC, we have DC vs. Vampires World War V, issue number 1, now officially part of the DC Elseworlds brand, which they have just recently revitalized. And there's another Elseworlds book coming up that's really solid. This one is pretty solid too. So I didn't finish the initial DC vs. Vampires, so if you didn't finish that book, this is going to spoil the ending of that, obviously, but it's actually interesting. I kind of want to go back and reread DC vs. Vampires and make it all the way through now, because instead of just having a situation where like the good guys win and the bad guys lose, it looks like there was this truce between different factions of DC vampires or something. So you got Damian is leading, Damian's a vampire and he's leading a resistance against the Vampire Queen, which is Batgirl. But I had a lot of fun with it. I thought Otto Schmidt's artwork was great. Not the best I've ever seen from him, but still pretty solid. And the writing by Matthew Rosenberg was pretty stellar. I really liked this book. I thought this was a really great continuation of a series that I never finished and actually got me wanting to go back and reread that initial series. Y'all, those who have finished DC vs. Vampires, is it actually worth it? Let me know. Then we get Absolute Power, Task Force 7, issue number 4. I thought that each issue of Task Force 7 would be about one of the new Amazo robots that are kind of like Amanda Waller stand-ins for the Justice League. But that's not what this one is. This one is focused in on Failsafe, which is a Batman robot that is possessed by the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, which is a cool concept, probably the best thing that Chip Zdarsky has done and brought to the Batman mythology and lore. And this issue's pretty solid. So you got Nightwing, Tim Drake, and a few other characters, including the Ray. So it's so cool to see the Ray back. But this is them kind of going up against Failsafe, and I enjoyed it. In fact, it's not essential, but this has been my favorite issue of Task Force 7 so far. Absolute Power has been working, especially with the tie-ins, including Green Lantern issue number 14. Jeremy Adams has been doing a super solid and consistent job with the Hal Jordan Green Lantern book, and it doesn't even get dissuaded or distracted by the Absolute Power tie-in. This is really cool stuff. Where is Hal? What's he doing? How's he dealing with it? But also, where's Carol? How is she dealing with it? What about Alan Scott? This is directly following up some of the stuff from Task Force 7, issue number 3, I believe, with Jadestone, like, kidnapping Alan Scott. I really like this issue. I thought it was all right. The only thing I would say negatively about this is that Pasarin's artwork is a bit stiff at certain times. Aside from that, though, it does a great job of doing a tie-in to Absolute Power without detracting from the ongoing story. So I thought that was great. Batman and Robin number 12. This is the best issue of this series yet. Josh Williamson came out, did a really solid run, though I did feel like the art was a bit inconsistent. That's mostly because Simone DiMeo could not keep up with the schedule, and they were replaced a few times. Sometimes within the same book, it would just swap styles page to page. Now we got Juan Ferreira on the book, and it's freaking awesome. It's awesome. Bane is in charge of Dinosaur Island now. Batman and Robin are there to find him, and Damian goes after Bane to avenge the death of Alfred. Really solid stuff. Nobody writes Bane like Josh Williamson, and Juan Ferreira, the way he plays with layouts and composition, and did he color this himself? He did color it himself. The way he plays with color, it's absolutely fantastic. The use of red in this book in particular, the double page spreads, stellar. Stellar work. Really great stuff. Outsiders is here with issue number 10. So I was really hype on Outsiders when it first started because it was like a direct continuation of Warren Ellis and John Cassaday's Planetary, which is one of my favorite comic books of all time. We did a flip through of issue number 1 here on the channel a few months ago, so check that out if you're not familiar with Planetary. Let me sell you on it. It's so freaking good. So I was really excited to see that world get re-explored in a direct continuation of that story, even though it's set in the DC Universe. There have been recent revelations that make me feel like actually it's dishonoring Planetary, and I don't like this book anymore. Plus, the cursing comes out of nowhere, and I know it's me. Fuck what Robbie says. Robbie cusses a lot. You ever watch Rockin' Robbie Live? I unnecessarily curse all the time. But I ain't Batman. I ain't Batwing. I ain't Batwoman. I don't know. Something about that feels childish to me with the way it's utilized here. I don't know. It's I guess. But honestly, I'm not liking where this series has gone. Not at all. Not at all. Another Elseworlds book. We got Batman, Gotham by Gaslight, The Kryptonian Age, issue number 3. Another super solid issue of this one. So we're introduced to the Wonder Woman of the Gotham by Gaslight universe, and just the way that they're playing with the idea of like, it's almost like Hollow Earth type stuff, but with Themyscira and the Wonder Woman mythology kind of laden in with that. It works for me. I think the artwork is great. The story is great. It's got some great action to it. It's intriguing. This is not a Batman book. There's some Batman. There's a really great scene with Batman and Catwoman in there, reminiscent a little bit of Batman Returns at times, but you know, I think this book slaps. I think it's awesome. So there you go. Then we got, from the DC Vault, Death in the Family, Robin Lives. You thought that Batman Gotham by Gaslight, The Kryptonian Age was a long-ass title? How about, from the DC Vault, Death in the Family, Robin Lives? Anyway, this is J.M. DeMatteis and Rick Leonardi continuing the story as if Jason never died at the hands of the Joker, but actually lived. And it's alright. For instance, the coloring is so cool, and the coloring is like spot on 80s coloring, and it's even printed on like a newsprinty type thing. The coloring is great, the art's pretty solid, the story itself is just, the story's kind of whack, to be honest with you, but it goes to show you that you can still make mainstream superhero comics on this paper with old school coloring. So maybe we should get more of that. From Dynamite, we got Johnny Quest issue number 1. That's the Bob Layton cover. There were some decent covers for this one, but I thought this one was the best out of all of them. But this book is awesome. So I've never been the hugest Johnny Quest fan. Like, I remember when Cartoon Network first showed up, and they would re-air and rerun old school Johnny Quest stuff. I watched it occasionally, but I never became like a fan of Johnny Quest. It doesn't matter. I'm a fan of great comics. I'm a fan of the work of writer Joe Casey. This book was awesome. I loved this book. It's a great, like, kind of one-and-done tale of Johnny Quest and his whole family. A really cool sci-fi concept, and the way it culminates towards its ending, it sets up some interesting stuff to be explored in this series. I'm not a huge fan of that original cartoon. I haven't seen a whole bunch of episodes, so I don't know how this would read to an old school Johnny Quest fan, but we recently had a discussion with Joe Casey a few months ago where he actually announced this book officially for the first time. That was a PCP exclusive, and we were really excited, and he has a love for this character, for this property, for this brand, and he's bringing that love here. The artwork is super solid too. Sebastian Perez, Really doing a great job kind of capturing that old school flair and style. The coloring is great. This is some of the best artwork in a Dynamite book in a long time. I'm talking about internal artwork, because Dynamite's got some great covers, but they don't always nail it on the interiors. But here, they really do. This is a passion project. This is working. And even as somebody who's not the most hardcore Jonny Quest fan, I had a lot to enjoy in this book. Also, Joe Casey is returning to the channel Friday afternoon, 2 p.m. Central Time. Join us here for a live chat with Joe Casey, who is just a great, great comic book writer. Then we got Vampirella 671. I'm not keeping up with this book, but this is my runner-up for the cover of the week. Why? It's a butt. I like butts. All right, from Archie Comics, we have Kardak the Mystic, issue number 1, written by my buddy Joe Corallo. So I gotta talk about it. I had to read it. I had to pick it up, and it was really cool. Honestly, I kind of steer away from a lot of these Archie horror books right now, because ever since they did Sabrina, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and Afterlife with Archie, which it's a tragedy that book's never really continued and probably never will. But ever since they've done that, Archie knows that they can just hit that horror button, and at least they got like a cult following that's going to like read it or something. I read this one just because my buddy Joe wrote it, and I was really impressed. Kardak the Mystic is the magician of the Archie universe. This is kind of like retelling his story in a more modern approach, and it's got some really great themes. It's got a really great pace to it. Joe knows what he's talking about when he's talking about story structure and pacing, and you can tell in Kardak the Mystic because he puts it into use. His execution is flawless, and the artwork is really solid. I was really surprised. Butch Mappa, I really liked it. I liked the story. It read more like what I'm expecting from EC and Hello Darkness than what we're actually getting from EC and Hello Darkness. So Joe, you did a great job, buddy. You really did. Then we got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Night Watcher, issue number 1. It's written by Junie Baugh, with artwork by Faro Pei. The artwork is pretty decent. It's all right. It's introducing this new character of the Night Watcher, who we were introduced to in the TMNT Free Comic Book Day issue. They do reveal the identity of the Night Watcher here. But it's maybe a mutant, maybe a human. It's somebody who is like in a suit of armor, and it's part of this whole new like TMNT relaunch and reboot, right? Where these stories take place like a year after the end of the last TMNT run with issue 150. And we've already gotten issue number 1. And Night Watcher is like a separate thing, but it's connected to it, but it was good. If you're following TMNT and you're liking that stuff, you might want to check this one out just to know who the Night Watcher is. I knew who the Night Watcher was because I was part of a live call with Jason Aaron and a few other people where they were talking about the relaunches of TMNT and all that kind of stuff. And they kind of told us basically who the Night Watcher is. So it's not really that big of a shocker to me, but I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. You let me know down there. From American Mythology, we got Fright Night, Evil Ed Rising, issue number 1. I really wanted to like this book. I really, really love Fright Night. In fact, I'm so pumped to go to Scarefest this year because they're doing like a whole Fright Night cast reunion. And Tom Holland, the director, is even going to be there. Not Spider-Man, but the director of Fright Night and Child's Play and a few others. Fright Night, Evil Ed Rising. It's kind of like a sequel to Fright Night where we follow the journey of Evil Ed after the first Fright Night movie, and I wanted to like it, but it sucked. It sucked. Then we got Victor Crowley's Hatchet, Midnight Murders, issue number 1, the start of a new Hatchet miniseries, and just like every other Hatchet miniseries or one-shot, and just like the Fright Night, I really wanted to like it, but it sucks. But it's basically, what if vampires come down to the river or the lake or whatever that Victor Crowley, like, haunts? So it's Hatchet versus vampires. They should have just blended these into one book and been like Hatchet versus Fright Night. That would have worked better for me. Then we have Hell Mask, issue number 1. Verotic Comics making a comeback here. It's written by Glenn Danzig with artwork by Simon Bisley. I was really looking forward to this book, and it disappointed me. The artwork by Simon Bisley, first of all, is not fully painted or anything like the cover, and that's fine. I didn't expect it to be. I actually like the artwork. It's got this like raw, visceral quality to it that I liked, but the story was very simple, and the telling of it was very clunky and rather mundane. It didn't really do much for me, and I was really looking forward to this. I've heard so many stories about Verotic comics from my childhood. I never really sank my teeth into these books, so I was expecting transgression and subversion and like T&A and blood and gore, and I mean he's got blood and gore. It's kind of disappointed by the horror books this week, y'all. From Boom Studios, actually Boom Box, we have Sir issue number 1. I did not like this one either. I don't know. It's about this dude who was ghosted by his girlfriend, and so he like spends all of his inheritance to get to this super private school so he can find her. She's actually part of this school where they do these like gladiator type of things or something. I don't know. I just could not connect with the characters. I could not connect with the story. It did not do anything for me, and that cover is whack. I guess they're trying to do like this thing where you can look at, but it's whack. It's whack. All right, then we got Profane issue number 3, a contender right there for the cover of the week. But Vampirilla's ass plus Precious Metal deserved the hat trick. However, Profane is a really solid book. It's about a dude who is it's about a detective in a fictionalized world who shows up in the real world trying to solve the murder of his writer. That's an interesting concept, but when Pete Milligan is playing with it, it's even better. I love the characters in here. I like the artwork. I think it's got a great sense of fun and humor to it, but at the same time, just kind of playing with this story that we've seen before in books like Bang and other things like that, but I don't know, it like works a little bit differently here. Pete Milligan is a super solid writer. He's really, really executing at a high level for me with Profane right now. Plus the art by Raul Fernandez is pretty solid and top-notch. Then we got Damaged People issue number 1. This is a new one from Alien Books, which is now the home of Valiant. It's got some really great artwork. Some really solid artwork. The story's just okay. It's about this woman who's obsessed with super scary things. She goes to this house to find this ghost. She falls in love with this ghost. It wraps up pretty quick, but there's supposed to be more. I don't know. The execution of the story was just alright. The art was what really sold me on this one. A lot of heavy blacks, which I appreciate. It's difficult to do that within composition sometimes in comics. So I did like that here. I like the cover by Maria Lovett, but the story itself just didn't really do much for me. It was alright. Then from Dark Horse, we have Kill All Immortals issue number 1. This is about a woman who is part of a Viking family, and they are immortals. And some of them they're actually like Viking gods in a way, but they're immortal. She has been like, screw you guys, I'm off doing my own thing. She's got a new boy toy. The boy toy finds out. The family finds out that he found out. Now they're after her to punish her and kill him. And this book was awesome. Zach Kaplan is a really cool writer, and he does a great job with like high concept stuff. But I've never really said that he's really great at writing and crafting action-heavy comics. That's what he's doing here. There are some amazing action sequences in here. Of course, aided superbly well by Fico Ossio on the artwork, Hassan Otsman El-How on the lettering. I like this book. It's got some exposition that doesn't feel like just a big info dump. It's got some great scintillating action sequences that I think are super solid. So Kill All Immortals was pretty dope. All right, then we got Babs issue number 1. This is a new one from Ahoy, written by Garth Ennis with artwork by Jason Burrows. This was all right. So Babs is like a female version of Conan the Barbarian, but a little bit more crude and rude than that, and it's all right. You know how like Garth Ennis can do books that are really layered and complex, but then he just does things that are just jokey and stupid? This one's just jokey and stupid, so if that's what you're looking for, you might want to check this out. But if you're looking for something a little bit deeper, maybe you want to pass on Babs. Just gonna say. From Mad Cave Studios, we have Defenders of the Earth, issue number 1. The hell was this book? I was so lost. I feel like this might be a follow-up to the original Defenders of the Earth comic that's getting a trade paperback re-release from Mad Cave soon, or a follow-up. Was it a cartoon or something? I'm not super familiar. I know the characters of Mandrake, Flash Gordon, and Phantom. I don't know who this dude is. I felt so freaking lost in this book. I had no idea what was going on. I was like, why is Flash acting like that? Why is Phantom acting like that? What the hell is going on? Jim Calafiore on the artwork, it kind of threw me back a little bit to the days when he was doing Aquaman with Peter David, but it ain't the same. This book did not work for me at all. But Dick Tracy sure did. This was an amazing book. Dude, Michael Morisi and Alex Sakura are doing such a great job on this, and Geraldo Borges on the artwork. It's great. It's a grounded, violent, brutal take on Dick Tracy that honors everything about Dick Tracy. It honors the detective nature of the story. It honors the time period that Dick Tracy came out in. It honors the comic book nature of some of the villains and even the heroes. And it does it by keeping it, and it keeps it very grounded and very real and very brutal and violent. And it's just amazing. It's just amazing. Greg, you're right. Dick Tracy slaps. Feels like we just got issue 3 though. But I'm not against it. Then we got Barbaric, Born in Blood, issue number 3, the final issue of the latest Barbaric series, and I thought this was really, really solid. So in this issue, or in this series, Owen the Barbarian, who is cursed with an immortal life, and he's got a talking axe that gets drunk on blood, and that's always fun. But the book kind of took a dive in my interest lately, but it's resurged that with this new book, right? Because in this issue, or in this series, I should say, Owen goes back to the barbarian tribe that he hails from, right? So we're understanding and learning things about his past, and at the same time setting up a really interesting story involving werewolves, and then the way that this accumulates, right? Accumulates into a great setup onto what's to come, like not just in the next series, but down the road even further. And it does a great job of exploring the character and the origins of Owen the Barbarian. Crude, rude, subversive a little bit, but for the most part, just a big, dumb, fun book that I'm still having fun with. Barbaric, Born in Blood, issue number 3. All right, well, that's what I read. That's what I thought. Let's recap. Barbaric, Born in Blood, issue number 3 was super solid. Dick Tracy, number 4 was amazing. Defenders of the Earth, number 1 lost me. I feel so lost. Babs wasn't quite for me, but maybe for you. Kill All Immortals, great, scintillating action sequences from Zach Kaplan and his artist there. Who's the artist? Oh, Fico Osio. All right, Damaged People had great art, but didn't really grab me with the story. Profane is surprising me issue to issue. Sir from Boombox did not work for me. Hell Mask did not work for me. Hatchet and Fright Night, Evil Ed Rising. I really wanted to like these books, but I didn't. TMNT Night Watcher was pretty interesting. If you're really vibing with the TMNT stuff right now, check it out. Kardak the Mystic. Joe, you did a great job there. Vampirella 671. Why? Because of butts. Because of butts. Then we got Johnny Quest issue number 1. Joe, you did a great job there. Another Joe. Joe C versus Joe C. Death in the Family, Robin Lives from the DC Vault. It's great art. The story just kind of eh. Batman Gotham by Gaslight, The Kryptonian Age. I'm loving that book right there. Outsiders number 10 is pissing me off. Batman and Robin, this is the best issue of that series yet. Green Lantern, how to do a tie-in and not detract from your ongoing story. A course, a masterclass by Jeremy Adams. Absolute Power Task Force 7, I think this might be the best issue of that series so far. DC vs. Vampires, World War V. Didn't finish the previous volume. This made me want to check that out because it's got some cool concepts. Ultimates number 3, my boy Dennis doing great things at Marvel. Helverine number 4, an abrupt and sudden ending to a book that had some promise, but now it's done. Fantastic Four 23 didn't quite work for me. Felt it was also kind of rushed. It was alright. Vengeance of the Moon Knight issue number 8 was awesome. X-Men number 2 was better than issue number 1. Iron Fist 50th Anniversary didn't really do much for me. Venom Wars Spider-Man, I didn't like that one. Spider Society, I didn't like this one, but if Spider-Verse is your stuff, go for that. Werewolf by Night number 1 didn't really work for me either. X-Factor number 1 didn't really work for me either. So there you go. Falling in Love on the Path to Hell, a little bit clunky, but for the most part, still pretty solid. Geiger was great with issue number 5, but the pick of the week goes to Precious Metal, Smell of the Week, Cover of the Week, Pick of the Week, the trifecta, the hat trick, from Darcy Van Polgees, Ian Bertram, Matt Hollingsworth, Hassan Othman El Hal, and Ben Dyer. This is what it's like when people give a shit make comics. Right there. All right, what are you reading? What are you thinking? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for liking, sharing, and subscribing. And join us over at popculturephilosophers.com for podcasts, blogs, and a whole lot more. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so at patreon.com/PCP. I've been Rockin' Robbie Bills. Thanks for rocking with us. Station. Keep on reading. Pop, pop. You said wait longer this time.